Pollinator Census like this in the United States. So that makes it unique, and it's also very, very important. So we have 3 goals for the census. The first is to create sustainable pollinator habitat across the state. You know, if you have people moving in your area from other parts of the country, some plants that they might be used to maybe have a hard time in our drought or attract pest insects. So we want to make sustainable habitat. In 2019, we found that over 2,000 participants of the census actually created habitat for the census. So that's 2,000 extra pollinator spaces. You talk about some conservation of our pollinators, that's amazing. So our second,
Becky, that reminds me about the using native plants, how important that is. And you alluded to that with the drought. But that's another thing as scientists, as ecologists, as people interested in these sorts of things are always trying to support native species. So that's a great thing as well with your program.
We've done a lot of work with the Native Plant Society and a lot of other conservation groups as well. Our second goal is to increase the insect knowledge of our citizens. The project actually came about as I was visiting gardens that had beautiful vegetables, and they would complain about, we just aren't getting yield this year, or we have so many Mexican bean beetles. And what I found is they really didn't understand the whole ecosystem of the garden, the beneficial insects. So we started the project to get people to understand we have 4,000 native bee species in North America.
Wow.
And the average population says it's a honeybee. You know, so we wanted to increase that knowledge. And then thirdly, of course, is to collect data. We want data on these insects. Last year was our baseline, and this year coming up will be our second wave, and we're hoping this is an annual event.
Yeah, I think about it as what we call a long-term ecological research project. And I can see this really going out over the years and how cool, you know, last year we were like, we want to be part of the very first year. And so we were really excited to be able to do that in our county at those locations that Maurice was talking about. But I think that's going to be really an important set of data, you know, for scientists, for college students to use, for high school students to use. It's going to be really pretty cool, I think.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks. And the other thing I think is so interesting is every time I Google the Great Georgia Pollinator Census, it pops up. Be sure to fill out your census form for the U.S. Census that's going on now, our 2020 census. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. We're counting people at the same year that we're counting, you know, at the same time we're going to be counting pollinators.
Right. 2 censuses, both very important.
Exactly. Both very important. Ashley, I know you said last year that you participated as well, and I think it would be really helpful for people to understand, you know, kind of how that works to do a census, a pollinator census, but then also thinking, you know, this is a different year and it's going to be different with the pandemic. So if you could kind of address some of that, that'd be great.
So I was a high school agriculture teacher last year, and I set this up with my students. I did a whole lesson on involving environmental science with bees and pollinators and the importance of pollinators and protecting them. It was quite simple. We just spent 15 minutes out in our small garden area, and we picked, you know, I told the kids to pick a plant and count the pollinators. But I'm going to share my screen with you.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you the Great Georgia Pollinator Census.
Oh yeah, we see that. Mm-hmm.
It's in 15 days, 9 hours, 51 minutes, and 7 seconds. So if you go to this website, it's super easy to find. You type it into Google, you pull it up. 10 steps to participating in the Great Georgia Pollinator Census. You know, you first want to look at the insect counting guide, and I have that pulled up here. And so this is the counting guide. Where's it at? There we go. This is the counting guide, and it's basically just talking about different types of insects and pollinators that are here in Georgia. And like Becky said, there's over 4,000 different species in North America, and everyone thinks they're honeybees, but they're not. But they are just as important in pollinating. And one of the more common ones is the carpenter bee, and you can see here it's super large, black body, dense hair on the head and thorax. That's this area here. I don't know if you can see my mouse.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, I can see that.
not to be confused with the bumblebee.
Yeah.
And the bumblebee has a very large thorax and abdomen, and they're actually so big that they're not really supposed to fly, but they do. And they have a black body covered with a dense yellow and black hair. So you can see the difference between the bumblebee and the carpenter bee. And
I wished I'd seen that before last year, but
yeah,
I think I did confuse them. But
a lot of my students did not know. They were like, we just thought the carpenter bees were honeybees, and I'm like, no, they're carpenter bees.
Right.
And so it was a great learning experience for my students, and they really, really enjoyed being outside and being able to be a part of that. This is the quintessential honeybee here. It's brown or black stripes on the body, golden hair colors. So and it's slightly smaller than the carpenter bee and the bumblebee, actually a lot smaller. So you can see here's a big bumblebee, and then there's a honeybee. And those are the ones that, are making the honey. They're the ones that we're trying to protect. Then any other small bee can include the leaf cutter bees, the sweat bees, things like that, any other of the small bees. Wasps, a lot of people, I have been getting a lot of calls about the, the giant murder hornets from.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there are several large species in Georgia that look just like, that have that large yellow and black striping like the murder hornet, but it's most likely a cicada killer. So you can look that up, a cicada killer wasp, and they're really big. They're, about the same size. So we also want you to count flies. They have very large eyes. So you can see in this picture, they have the large 2 eyes.
And
just
it's
like
neat. Actually, the flies a lot of times are mimics of some of those other more not deadly, but harmful, stinging insects.
Yeah, there is a fly that looks a lot like bees. They have stripes on them, but you gotta count the wings. They have 2 wings instead of 4 wings. So you have to be able to watch it and count the wings on it. And if it has 2 wings, then it's a fly. And obviously we want to count the butterflies. This is probably my favorite pollinator, is the butterflies. As well as other insects like ladybugs, lacewings, the dragonflies, things like that are landing on those plants. That's just an overview of the types of insects you might see when you are doing your pollinator census. So going back to the steps, you want to choose your favorite pollinator plant in your garden area. And Becky, when she said that over 2,000 participants planted their own pollinator space, that's so amazing and so good to hear for the future of pollinators. And if you're interested in doing that, you can definitely reach out to me, and I can get you some information from the Extension office on plants to choose, native plants, things like that, to help start your own pollinator garden. Next, print out the counting sheet. That's what I just showed you. You can find that on this website. Grab a pencil, comfortable chair, and a cool drink, because it is hot outside, guys. And set a timer for 15 minutes. So you want to make sure that you're watching your plant for only those 15 minutes, and you want to count how many insects land on any part of the plant, on the leaves, on the flowers, on the stems, any part of that plant. And you want to tally it up, and then take your counting sheet and go to this website here. And early on the morning of August 21st, the portal will open, and you can log your insect counts there. And you actually get a cute little certificate of participation. You get to hang it up, post it on your Instagram, show your friends, and you did a great thing for Georgia pollinators.
And one of the things I learned last year, pick a small plant. It's harder than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually one of the things I was thinking, I worked with some of the students over at East Newton Elementary School, and they had a great time, but I went out a couple of days, like I think the week ahead, with the teachers, and we looked at the site they were going to use because we really didn't think there were too many pollinators there. But it turned out that there were a lot of little things in the grass that the pollinators were really attracted to. So they had more pollinators than they realized. We checked the time of day because we were a little worried about, you know, are they more active in the middle of the day, the morning, the afternoon? And they had certain class times they had to go out. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things we also did was we picked up a couple of plants at Mayfield Hardware in Covington, thinking that would help supplement some of the, and you could spread the students out a little bit better that way. And I think all of that preparation ahead of time really helped the teachers feel a lot more comfortable about it and just know that, oh, hey, it's really going to work, because they kind of worked through it themselves that first time.
Yeah, for sure. And so Becky, is earlier in the day better for pollinators?
Well, I think it totally depends on the best time of the day is the time of the day that you're available to go out and count. How about that? So if you have, if you're waiting and want to do it with your family, if you're working with a group, of course, most pollinators are flying when it's warm, the warm wings, sunny conditions. But I did have some people really were curious to see what kind of pollinators are coming out at dusk, you know, and that type of thing. But generally the rule is you want to see more bees, especially you want it sunny and you want it warm.
Well, and you know, the other thing that the students were doing is sort of doing comparative studies. So this leads to scientific investigations by your students. And actually, I know you were talking about that a little bit too with what you were doing, but you know, comparative studies. So this plant versus that plant, it might be the color that they're being attracted to. It might be the shape of the flower that they're attracted to. But time of day is another great kind of comparative study. You could do a count in the morning and then a count in the afternoon. So Ashley, what happened? Can you do more than one count and record it?
Becky?
Yes, you can.
Oh, good. Okay. So if you wanted to set up some kind of comparative study, you could do that and actually contribute both sets of data to the website.
Yes, oh, I know. I'm counting Friday and Saturday. I'm counting at 3 different places on Friday, and I have 3 different places I'm visiting on Saturday. So yes, you can count more than one time.
No limit.
No limit.
Whoa. Well, that's great. So, you know, this year is different with the pandemic. So Ashley, have you thought about kind of how that's going to affect the counts? And I know for Sustainable Newton, we're, you know, like Maurice said, we're not going to have a set time for people to show up. That was such a great fun thing to do for our community. Academy Springs was right there in the middle of town in Covington, and that worked out good. And Maurice, where else did we have our counts?
I say we did the Oaks, the Suzuki Garden, Pollinator Garden there at Academy Springs. We did the Oxford Organic Farm, and we did Yellow Hen Farm up in near Social Circle. Yeah,
and I think we even had pizza with our Yellow Hen Farm count. I think we had brick oven pizza. Randy Vinson was really nice to cook that for us. So what about this year?
Well, I think this year is going to obviously look different, you know, without having those large groups of people, but you know, individuals can still do the count. They can still participate. You can participate with your family. It's a great opportunity to get outside and spend some time with your family, with your friends, things like that, and definitely make a difference. So here on my screen here is a meme that you can add to your social media page, letting everyone know that you counted during the Great Georgia Pollinator Census. So I think it's super cute, and I love this. I love all the social media stuff. So
thanks. Good.
That's really neat with the flag showing right there in the center of that bee. That's cool.
That was from Daniel Ballard, and he's an ecological landscaper who just is a big fan of the project. And, you know, he did this for us last year, and I said, could you do it again this year? And he came up with this week. So it's brand new. I think he did an amazing job.
I love it.
So Becky, I'm thinking too, your website is set up so nicely, and you've got a lot of resources for educators there. I mean, we talked about a couple of things that teachers can do and educators can do. I know, actually, when you said individuals, I've got a friend who's a grandmother, and she said, oh, the pollinator census is coming up. I'm going to have my grandkids out there doing it. And I was like, oh, yay. I was so glad she'd heard of it, and then that she was already planning to do it. I thought that was fabulous. Okay. But Becky, can you tell us a little bit about those resources and how they might help teachers or individuals who might be interested?
Sure. Well, we've got last year, I'll start with this. We had over 100 events statewide.
Wow.
Where people came and showed up and counted, and everyone had a great time. And this year, you know, we're not having that. So one aspect is the counting with your family at home. So some of our new resources this year is we have tasked family and consumer science agents with giving us some recipes featuring plants that need pollinators. So you could have a whole themed day. You could have a meal with full of pollinator plant, or I guess results of pollinators on your table. And then you could go out and do your counts and then come back in and watch a movie, maybe the bee movie or Flight of the Butterflies. So
Becky, I'm thinking, what do you recommend for a meal?
Well, I definitely think you need some fruit. You know, I love honey butter. I have it on everything. We have one of our recipes is an Italian dish with zucchini.
Oh,
and
yeah.
all those are posted on the website, and we're also featuring those as memes on social media. So I highly recommend that. So we're kind of going, you know, that's one aspect. And then you mentioned the teachers. I had a call this morning, actually, and I wrote down this is from the State Board of Education, the STEM program specialist. I met with her today. And one of the things that educators like about the program, it's a no-cost program.
Yeah.
So I work a lot with Title I schools who don't have money for a lot of things. And so we had a lot of Title I schools participating. We have upped our resources this year to allow teachers to have anything they need to do this virtually. So what we're having is teachers who are we have a PowerPoint they can upload to train the students on the different insect categories, and they're sending out the count sheets, having their students count, and then sending the results back. The teachers will upload the counts, and then they're using all of that information in their classroom. They're doing graphs. They are doing more biology studies. They're tying it to curriculum such as geography. Where do these insects come from? Are we finding migratory things that time of year? They're talking about literature. My favorite thing is when schools do haiku. And that haiku, they do ode to a whatever, ode to the bumblebee. And they'll send me copies of those. So it really is a program that I hopefully designed to be flexible so that teachers and individuals and grandparents and young adults can just really get in there and use the resources to have a great time and do something really positive, in this time in our country's history for Georgia.
I'm seeing, when this is all over, the pandemic, I'm seeing a wind down Wednesday or a wind down day where they have wine serving and everybody's counting pollinators at the same time. All the young adults, we might have to, that may be the Sustainable Newton, Maurice. We might have to do that the next time, is have a little wind down afternoon.
And this year there's a couple breweries that are doing counts on site. They have created, pollinator gardens at the breweries. We actually have in Conyers, there is the Monastery of the Holy Spirit. They counted last year. They're doing it. We've got Girl Scouts doing it. You know, we have all sorts of groups have embraced it. So yes, there are wine groups out there doing it this year.
That works. Yeah, and so Becky, we talked about the data a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit? Because, you know, first thing I did this year was I was going, oh, good, I want the data because I'm a science person. And the first thing I want to do is I want to see the data and I want to see what it looks like. And I was disappointed, but, you know, after we talked, I understood what was going on. So could you tell folks about the data and how that's going to be available at some point?
I will tell you about it, and then I've got some things to share. Anyone who's in the scientific field and does research knows there's this thing called peer-reviewed science, right? So all of the data, we had almost 5,000 people participate last year. We had 131,000 insect visits, and all that data had to be gone through line by line, and that was my job. And so I did that, and then we wrote 3 manuscripts with the data. And all 3 of those manuscripts are in publication process right now. I was really hoping that they would be out before the census because I know everyone is anxious to see the data. I've had researchers from outside of Georgia want the data for their research. Yes. So that part is coming. And as soon as they hit the publication, you know, are out there, I will definitely let everybody know. But I did have some data to share with you.
Oh, good.
So let's see.
Oh, cool.
I pulled Newton County's results. So here's, we had 54 counts from Newton County last year uploaded. And these are what the Newton County folks saw. A lot of butterflies here, a lot of bumblebees here. We had 0.5% of the population count. So I know that you all are going to be working hard to up that for this year.
So meaning 0.05 of our human population.
Correct.
Counted.
Correct. That's right.
Okay, just getting that straight.
There. Yes, yes. So we had over 1,000 insects were reported. So that was amazing for Newton County. And I wanted to share this as well. Here is the raw data. This is how many of each type of insect was reported. So here we are with a total of 131,844 verified insect reports. Wow. That's a lot of counting.
Oh, that's great.
One of the things that stands out to me as an entomologist is this number of small bees here. When you count for the census, small bee is defined as anything smaller than a honeybee. And that encompasses a lot, if not most of our non-bombus, which means not bumblebees, native bees. So that it means things like leafcutter bees and mining bees and sweat bees, all of those things fall into the small bee category. And that's a nice number right here, y'all.
Yeah, yeah.
We're seeing a lot more native bees than I thought we would, especially that time of the year. So that was enough to make me cheer, just that number right there.
And Becky, it would be great. Have other states actually reached out to you to say, we want to start a program like this? Because, you know, that's another great scientific comparative study, you know, compare our data to other states.
Right. And we are working with some other states. I've got some things in the works there. The thing that really is important that we want to make sure that other states understand is we did 2 years of a pilot project to figure out the counting system. So we wanted counting to be easy so that everyone would do it and they would learn a little entomology. You know, Maurice, now you will never mistake a carpenter bee from a bumblebee again, right?
Right.
It's learning as you go. It's not difficult. You don't have to be a PhD entomologist to do it. But on the other hand, we're getting data that's valuable. So we're increasing our insect knowledge of our citizens. They're learning about diversity of our insect populations and giving valuable, useful data, and we're able to use it. So it was a good marriage of those two concepts.
Yeah.
So here's a state map of where the people counted last year. So we can see kind of where I needed to work this year, the gray counties. We hit hard. Where are your counts? Why are you guys not participating? But what was interesting is some of these smaller counties that really embraced it, you know, almost 100 counts in a lot of these smaller areas. And so we did truly have statewide participation.
So the best counts are blue?
Yes, over 100 counts submitted if you are in a blue county.
Oh, dang, Newton County's green. Well, how many did we do?
I think it was 54 counts.
Okay, right. All right, well, we'll be blue next year, I'm sure.
All right.
We have a question in the chat that's probably timely, Becky, while you're talking. Anyway, Bill wanted to know, why is the pollinator survey in August, and are there plans to expand to different dates?
Okay, that is a very good question. And there is a method to that madness, and I get that question a lot. So I appreciate the opportunity to explain. So when we did our pilot projects, we definitely wanted to include schools. As Ashley will tell you, it's important to include them. And we also needed a time of the year where something is blooming in all parts of Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
So we needed something in the later springtime, right? So if you're asking schools to participate in a citizen science project in the springtime, you are competing with statewide testing, field days, and spring break. If you ask teachers to participate in the fall, right after they get back from school, they're more likely to have things together to participate. Now, during the pilot projects, we actually had counts in September and October, when we learned hurricane season in Georgia is in September and October, because Irma came through one of our counting years and not only destroyed pollinator gardens, but also disrupted counting. And so some of that data was invalid. So taking all those things into consideration, we came up with the latter part of August. And I understand it's hot, and I understand that a lot of our summer things, especially towards South Georgia, have petered out, and it's a little harder to find plants. But what we learned from last year was people figured out what grew in August and was blooming in August in their area of the state, and they planted that. So this year, leading up to the census, I'm not getting a lot of calls saying, oh my gosh, I've got nothing blooming, because everyone anticipated we're counting in August. And in the big picture, some of my horticulture friends were excited about this, because this is a time of year where they consider it being a dearth, where we might not have a lot of nectar plants blooming for our pollinators, but because Georgians have embraced the census and increased those pollinator gardens that are blooming in August, we are actually having more resources for pollinators during that time of year. So I hope, Bill, that answers your question, and you don't think we're just crazy by picking the hottest days of the year.
Seeing how much people can sweat. Attract those sweat bees.
What's their dedication to get out there for 15 minutes?
That's why you got to have that cool drink.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
Or whatever you want. So, yeah. So that's the data I wanted to share with you guys this year, and we'll be working hard to get that stuff published and working hard to get the 2020 comparisons up and going.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, you talk about the goal is to help pollinators.
Yes,
and so, Ashley, I was thinking about, what can we do? I go to the store to buy plants now, and I'm like, okay, I know I'm supposed to buy neonicotinoid-free plants. So I try to look on the labels. I try to see what they say, and how that works. And then what I'm using at home, pesticides. I mean, at my house, I don't let Billy have any chemicals in my yard at all, because I'm just trying so hard to do my very best to protect Mother Earth. But I know, I've got neighbors that say, yeah, I've got to spray for this or that. And I'm like, ooh, are there things that people can do at their home that would help the pollinators so we can boost these counts?
Of course, yeah. So, we want to make sure that we're ensuring protection of the pollinators from those pesticides. And, you want to prevent the pesticide kills by applying it in the evenings. Many of the honeybees and things like that are going to start slowing down in the evenings as dusk comes upon us. And, you want to make sure that you're spraying in the evening hours, and it can greatly reduce the honeybee mortality rate because the bees just simply aren't out. And also, you want to make sure that you're choosing the appropriate formulation for what you're spraying. You're reading the label. You're making sure that your application rate is correct, so that it's not, coming in contact with those bees at a more deadly level. This could cause an entire colony to collapse if a bee were to take it back to the colony. Also, you can try picking, less toxic and rapidly degradable pesticides. So, the University of Georgia has a table of insecticides and miticides that can, point you in the right direction for which kinds you want to use. And, you want to be able to alter your application method. A lot of aerial sprays and things that drift can affect colonies and honeybees. So spraying during windy days can greatly increase that risk of drift.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're checking the weather, you're checking the wind speed, things like that, and making sure that you're only spraying your intended target area. And that's going to reduce the risk. And a lot of beekeepers are making sure that their colonies and their hives are in safe locations. And a lot of beekeepers work with farmers, and the farmers work with the beekeepers to make sure that they know what they're spraying, when they're spraying, and things like that. So, and as far as boosting the population numbers, doing things like, being conscious of what pesticides you're using, and also increasing those pollinator areas, like Becky said, and increasing those flowers that are blooming in late August or something like that to increase that season of pollination for those bees is definitely going to boost those populations. Also, I can share with you my screen. The University of Georgia has some how-to guides, and you can create a pollinator nesting box to help some of the native bees. So I know Pike County just had a bunch of kits that they did, but you can go on here and find out how you can build a kit, or you can build a nesting box to help harbor those native bees. There's also some resources on selecting some different types of shrubs and trees and attracting pollinators to your area. I know one of my favorite pollinator shrubs is a butterfly bush. I have several in my yard. So it's great to see that people are concerned, and you can definitely make a difference in boosting those populations and preventing those pollinators from dying out.
I was thinking, Ashley, too, Daniel Parson, who is the farmer, the organic farmer at Oxford College, I used to do sweep nets over there for the insects, which is a cool thing. My students love doing that. So you just walk through the field with the sweep net, and that insect net then collects everything. You can just, squeeze it closed, and then get your students to come over and look around, and open it up, and they got insects popping in and out everywhere. I mean, they loved that, even at the college level. I mean, everybody loves to look at that. And one of the things that he had done was he's divided his farm up into different plots, and he rotates his crops through those. And then he has, one of his rotations is always alfalfa. And he's not using it as a crop. He's using it as an attractant for bees, and lots of pollinators. So that was, another thing I think about that farmers do that maybe homeowners don't necessarily do, but it's, leaving a little space in your yard without mowing it, sometimes that'll get a lot of those. I know I've got Queen Anne's lace, and I've got, I want to say it's purple verbena that has started growing in my yard now, because I just loved them. They were on the side of the yard, so I just quit, on the side of the road. But I wanted them in my yard. So I just kind of had a little area, and I said, Billy, do not mow that area. And we had some trees taken down, and so it was a lot of sun. And so it's really cool to see the flowers. I've got Joe Pye weed coming in there. I had oxeye daisy coming in there. So just some cool things. And then I bought some seed from, I can't remember the place, but it specializes in Southeast wildflower mix. And so it'll have coreopsis, it'll have a lot of the plants that you see on the side of the road, and you can plant those. And so I thought I think I'm gonna hold my seed till the beginning of next year, when I can water real good after I get the seeds in the ground. But I thought that would be another cool thing to kind of do, to get a little bit more going on with that.
One thing too, if I can interrupt for a second, something to be on the lookout for is the University of Georgia through the State Botanical Gardens. We have a committee of native plant and pollinator professionals, and we have the State Botanical Gardens in Athens has initiated this program called the Pollinator Plants of the Year. So what we found is a lot of times we can recommend these special plants and they will not be available at a local nursery. And a good example is tuberosa, Asclepias tuberosa, orange milkweed. We all know that that is an easy to grow plant and it's hard to find in a nursery simply because it's hard to propagate. So what we've done is we have partnered with landscapers and nurserymen across the state, and they have gotten some lessons on propagating some of these things that are a little more difficult. And we have also worked with master gardeners across the state, especially milkweed is the one I'm working with. And we, oh, there we go. So we've got our spring bloomer, a summer bloomer, a fall bloomer, and then an overall native plant. Now the plan was that in 2020, we were gonna spend the time working with the growers. And then in 2021, these were gonna be available in your nursery with a special tag, talking about the program. Now, I'm not sure how that's gonna go with the pandemic because a lot of greenhouses were not open for workers in March and April and May when we would be planting these. But keep your eye open for this. This is going to be a really, I think it's going to be a game changer for us. These are all amazing plants. And so just keep an eye out for that because it is coming.
Yeah. So I'm just interested in Joe Pye weed.
Yes.
It's just like one of my favorite things. And Billy has learned to identify it so he doesn't mow it in my yard, which is fabulous.
The deer eat
popping
it.
up in
all over my yard.
The what?
The deer love to eat it.
Oh, now the deer eat a lot of stuff in my yard, but they have not eaten my Joe Pye weed.
Yeah. They've eaten my Joe Pye weed and my milkweed as well, which you think milkweed, you know? So yeah, of course I live in the mountains and I live in the, you know, between two forests. So
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm hoping they won't get, I'm sad you said that about milkweed. I did not cover my milkweed with my deer netting before I left. So I hate that. And that bright orange was in bloom before I left Covington. I'm in Charleston right now. Well,
as we're talking about plants, I was going to just bring up some of our photos from last year, the 4 counts we did, and talk some of the places that people, you know, where we were able to see a lot of pollinators. This was at the Oaks Golf Club.
And the Oaks Golf Club has a pollinator garden that was planted, by the ones who helped them were Connie and David Waller in town, helped them set that up.
And if those folks that are in Covington, the Academy Springs Park has the pollinator garden that the Setsuki Garden Club created, which is an amazing place with a lot of the plants that we've been talking about. This is the Oxford Organic Farm, which, as Theodosia was mentioning, is a good spot also. And then some of these are at a private farm, a yellow hen farm up near Social Circle. That, but one of the things that, you know, I learned that, you know, was probably didn't appreciate before the census last year was how much each particular plant, each butterfly or bee has its preferred plant. And they were all together in each of their spots.
Yeah. One of the things I was thinking about too, I brought my t-shirt to share. This is the caterpillar of the monarch butterfly. And I got this. This is the Monarchs Across Georgia program. And I know, Becky, you said you've done some things with them. You want to tell people a little bit about that? Because these are some other resources. I think about Journey North. That's another kind of program that tracks these monarchs since they are so different than other butterflies. They're doing that migration.
Right. So Monarchs Across Georgia is an amazing, amazing program for Georgians. I do a lot of work with them, a lot of collaboration. I think all of the people that work with them and volunteer with them are very passionate. The Monarchs Across Georgia Symposium is in October. And we were all excited. It was in Athens. I was going to lead a garden walk where we looked for insects. And it was just going to be a fun time to just be up and be excited about insects. Well, got the word this week that it's going to be a virtual But the plus side is that we are working hard to make it as interactive and as fun as it can be. The women who are working hard in Athens, I got a call from Cora Keebler. Y'all may know her. She's working really hard with Susan to make it a great event. So be on the lookout for that. I will be leading a garden walk through video.
Oh,
I found out today, so that'll be exciting. So be on
yeah.
the lookout for the virtual MAG conference.
Oh, that's great. And that's part of, that's an initiative, a program under the Environmental Education Alliance of Georgia, which is a great resource for teachers and everybody in lots of different ways. I mean, they do not just Monarchs, but they have environmental education certification program with UGA, School of Warnell School. There's just a number of programs they do, and they have workshops that, again, I'm sure are being virtual now, but when we get back to being together, those are great. They have an annual conference where you can network with people who are interested in these kinds of things. So it's a great resource for our state.
It is. They do great things. I'm happy to be part of that, and I love speaking at those conferences and working with teachers as well.
Yeah. So one of the things I think about is, we think about what are the challenges for these pollinators. And there are a lot of issues right now for pollinators. Why are we worried about pollinators? Well, we think their populations are decreasing. One of the other things is we don't know it statistically in a lot of times because we don't have the counts that have already been put for the baseline information to tell us. We just get this sense of we're losing pollinators. In some cases, we've done small counts, but this count is really going to be big and I think really important in that. But I think about what some of the other problems for pollinators are, and probably y'all have a sense, Ashley and Becky, you probably have a sense of what some of those other, habitat is certainly one, but you're thinking about things like how we're using land and clearing land. So we have to kind of compensate for that by creating these habitats. But, I know they face other issues. Are there other things that come to your mind that maybe they're facing?
Well, habitat to me is number one. It's even more important than pesticide issues because people don't know. They will take a landscape in a new home and put in what I consider sterile plants that I really don't have personally use for. If something's not eating it or landing on it, I don't really want it in my yard, honestly. So I think that is a number one thing. And then education. I live up in Blairsville, as I mentioned, and I do work with Fireflies. I had a new Firefly publication come out this week, actually. And I will meet people all the time that say, what happened to all the Fireflies? Yes. And these are the same people that leave their lights on all night long. Yeah. And so it's just, they don't know. Yeah. So we've got to educate people. We've got to educate people about the 4,000 bee species, that most of our bumblebees are ground nesting, that fireflies need the lights off. And, if you're in Charleston, so you go to some of these beach communities, they make you turn the lights off at night during turtle season, right? Yeah. Why can't we do something like that during firefly season?
That's so interesting because I had no idea about the lights for the fireflies. In my mind, it was pesticides that people were, doing so much pesticide spraying that their ground, but Clemson University has a citizen science program also, sort of like this pollinator census. It's a counting fireflies, and that you can look at this real cool. I too am very interested in the fireflies. Becky, that's interesting that you brought those up.
Well, if you look, if you go to the UGA publications, we have a new publications on fireflies in Georgia. Oh, that is a nice, and I can share it. I will pull it here and let you guys see it. It is, it's something that I designed. Well, we have a great graphic art team at the College of Education. And what they have done is, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do two things at one time. From the College of Ag. And they have done amazing things with this publication, and I'm excited to show it to you. But it is designed so if you rent your house out up here, you can actually put this in the house so people know not to turn the lights on at night. But you see can you guys, let's see. All right, resume share. All right. It's telling me, let's try this again. Telling me to reorder. Okay, so here we go. So do y'all see
There
that?
we go.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So
Oh.
Georgia's home to over 50 species of fireflies, and they are beetles that pollinate as well.
Yeah, oh, cool.
So if you look at the artist Megan McCoy, she works for the Office of Creative, let's see, it's Office of Communication and Creative Services. So I wrote the information with a colleague, and she did all the beautiful work. So this is available on the website. Download it, share it with your neighbors.
Yes.
It gives us a list of what we can do to help fireflies, and a lot of it is the same thing we're doing with our other insects as well.
Oh, that's fabulous, because I would love to have that at, get my neighborhood association, put it in our electronic newsletter, because people ask me questions like that, and I'm like, oh. So Maurice, are you going to give us the question? Somebody asked a question about fireflies. I didn't read it all. It was something about the timing of year.
Yeah, that was the earlier one we covered already, but this is a good time to ask if anybody does have questions. You can raise your hand in the webinar, and I'll unmute you so you can ask your question, or if you'd rather type it in, we'll ask it for you if anybody has.
So Becky, one of the questions that I read said something about, do you take our lights out only like, June, July, and August? What are the months that we need to keep our lights out for fireflies?
Well, we do have over 50 species, and some of them come early in the spring, and we still have some here at night or now. We have some that like dusk. We have some that like 4 in the morning. So my rule of thumb when I'm teaching it to people is to turn them off in any of our warm months.
Okay.
Now, and that helps all sorts of, not just fireflies, but if you'll notice, you turn your lights on at night, you will attract a lot of moths to the light. Well, those moths don't need to be at your back porch on the light. They need to be out mating and doing other things. So keeping those lights off during the warm months in the evenings and at night is the best thing.
That's another good reason. You can see the stars a lot better when your neighbors keep the lights out. I'm always trying to get my neighbors to because I live out in the country in River Cove in Newton County, and it's fabulous because we don't have street lights. But every once in a while, you'll have people come in and put big lights for security, and I'm like, oh, I hate that, because it means, I'm not going to see the stars as good. I love how dark it can be out there.
Exactly.
We've got a great question from Matthew in the chat. He asks, is there a hashtag associated with the event that we should include on our social media posts?
That is an amazing question. And it is hashtag GA Pollinators. And I'm typing it in the chat box now.
Right.
And I'm also typing in the link for the Firefly publication.
Oh, good.
And
I just shared the Firefly publication on our Facebook page as well. So
great.
Yep.
Thanks.
And Becky, there are other ways you're advertising. So I know I looked at your Facebook page, and it looked like lots of people are posting pictures of all kinds of pollinators there, lots of butterfly pictures, lots of questions that, what is this?
Yes. So our main social media outlet is the Facebook page, Georgia Pollinator Census. We have about 1,700 participants there. And it is, Facebook was chosen because teachers loved it. They could show their pictures. And every Friday we do a Fun Fact Friday, which is a little more science than you may need. I did one on a tarsal claw and how bees balance in flowers, and fly mouth parts. And teachers will take those and pull them and save them and put them on smart boards. So if anybody wants to join our group, agents use it and pull information and redistribute. If you have an event like Sustainable Newton event, you can let me know and I will help post it as well. Yes, there's a lot of, can you help me identify this? What plant can I plant here? On the census days, if people have problems with identifying and putting something in a category, they can either post on the webpage, on the Facebook page, or email me. I will have a panel of entomologists on staff ready to help with those ID questions as well.
Some of the photographs out there are stunning. Makes me feel very inadequate.
My daughter happens to be a very gifted photographer, and she's done a couple lessons for us on our Facebook page and on our blog to help people learn to take better pictures, and they have risen to the occasion. I'm telling you, some of those, and it's one of my favorite hobbies. I take my phone camera everywhere, and I love pictures.
Mm-hmm.
But Marie,
I'm still trying to get the bees to be still long enough to count them.
Exactly.
I think I need to upgrade my phone. I'll get better pictures that way. Surely it's not me. It must be the phone.
That's right.
Well, yeah, it's, you know, one of the things I'm interested in is climate change, and that's been a big focus for me personally. And the concern about how it is affecting wildlife. So I know, I want to say it's phenology or phrenology. It's the study of how things chronologically occur in nature. So the timing of blooms, the timing of caterpillars coming out of their cocoons, all these kinds of things that we think about that are being affected by climate change. And I know part of the problem is if you have certain plants that are supposed to be blooming at a certain time so that the caterpillars can come out of their, you know, hatch out of the egg and then feed on those plants, that you get this off sync, they get out of whack, and they can, you know, you don't have the food source available when the caterpillar is ready to eat, or the butterfly is ready to feed, or the bee or whatever. And then sometimes the plant that needs pollination is flowering too soon and the pollinators are not available. So it goes both directions. Are there other things that you can think of that are affected by climate change, or other things in general that might affect those? I'll tell you another thing that I've read and heard, and I thought, wow, I had not thought about this, is somebody said something about planting your pollinator garden away from the road, because roadkill is actually a problem for butterflies. And I know I've been riding down the road and a butterfly will go start across the road, or I'll be walking and I'll see a butterfly go across the road and I'm going like, don't go that direction. You know, that's a big highway. You're going to get smashed. And, you know, they're just flitting around and going from one side. And I'm like, oh, this isn't good. So are those real? I mean, is that something we should be considering, as Becky, as we start planting our gardens?
You know, we've all had that incident where we look on our car and we've hit insects. I know there was a study, because the plus and minuses of some of those roadways.
Yes.
And what they found is the amount of insects that were damaged versus the amount that benefited, it was still beneficial.
Oh,
but
yeah.
if you have a choice, you know, stay away from the roads. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. I forgot about the DOT doing all those great plantings where they have all those flowers in the middle of the highway, which is beautiful when you ride by. So that's good.
So Theodosia, you mentioned climate change. So I was going to jump in and take an opportunity, just while we have folks on with us still, to do a little plug for our organization, Sustainable Newton, and hope you'll visit our website, sustainablenewton.org. And one of the things that we believe you'll find beneficial would be to check our calendar regularly for events like this. Our board meetings are always open to the public. We'll have reminders out there about the census if you need to remember when it is, with links back to the information that Ashley and Becky were showing us earlier. But we've got a couple of events coming up in September and October. We've got a film, 2040, which was created by a gentleman, a documentary filmmaker in, I believe it's Australia, but
yeah, it's Australia.
Yeah, so we've secured the rights to stream that to folks for a week. So you'll find links on our website for how to get that link to watch the film the week of the 12th through the 19th. And we've got a panel discussion set up with some young folks, some local officials, and a diverse group of people that just talk about the ideas in the film. But it's, from what I understand, a very uplifting film, a very positive. It's a video letter to his 5-year-old daughter in the future about the world he wants to leave to her. So we try positive things in our organization, like this pollinator discussion and that. And then we also have a virtual screening coming in October of a film called The Story of Plastic, another panel discussion around that, and then a discussion we're going to have with a filmmaker based in Minnesota, Eric Gilsdorf, who was going to come visit us this fall to do some videos and stories about things going on in Georgia, in the Southeast, in Newton County, and with the situation with the pandemic, she's going up to the Pacific Northwest this fall and then working her way back here next spring. But Erica's going to join us and talk about her adventures and also what she can focus on with us when she comes here. So I'm sure the work that you, Becky, and Ashley are doing will be one thing we want to get her tied into. So anyway, we're really grateful to the folks that joined today. This was our first of what we hope will be many webinars. So if you joined to watch the replay, I apologize. I started the recording a little late. If you were watching on Facebook Live, I think I fumbled around getting that started, but you got the meat of it. All you missed was me babbling on about what we're going to do today. So we're glad to have everybody here. Becky and Ashley, we're very grateful, not just for you joining us today, but for the work you do to promote good things in Georgia and in Newton County. So,
well, thank you, and thanks for having us today. It's good to see everybody's face here.
Yep, we'll have that wind down count sometime in the future where we can all be together and enjoy it. But for now, this is still a great opportunity, and we thank you for that. On our various formats today, thanks for joining us. Please pass it along to your friends. And Theodosia, great job keeping our conversation going. Thank you. So,
my pleasure.
All right. Well, everybody have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.